I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, selling an assignment, selling a pre-sale assignment. I've done a few blogs on this over the past, so it's time for a refresher on this because in the last 3 months here, I'm always getting, every year I get at least 2 or 3 inquiries from someone who wants to hire me to sell an assignment. They bought a pre-sale a year or 2 or 3 years later. Sometimes it's getting ready for completion. And a change of circumstances happened. It's always something. Either A, they now cannot get the financing because when they bought the unit 3 years ago, interest rate environment was different. Maybe their income was different at that time, their job situation. Now they find out, hey, I can't close on this. The bank won't lend me the money. So they call me up and say, oh, and I want you to sell this unit as assignment. They think it's going to be simple and just blow the thing out and that way I'm out of it. I had, or in some cases, they had no intention of really closing on it. They figured I'd buy it. The guy at the sales center told me it goes nothing but up and I was going to sell it before completion and make a whole bunch of money. So every year I get these. In the last 3 or 4 months here, I've had a big influx in these. And I tell you, in one of them, in particular here, the Richmond Center project where the mall is, Richmond Square. That's a large project. I think there's about 5 or 6 towers, 1,500 units. In the last couple of months, I've had 3 people contact me in there, wanting me to hire me to sell an assignment. And I've had to tell them, I can't. You're not the first one. I already looked into it 3 months ago. And as expected, in most of these cases, the developer will not allow me to put this home as an assignment on the MLS. So if that's the case, which most developers now are, in the old days you used to be able to put it on the MLS. It was a breeze. You could sell it on the MLS, get lots of exposure. There was no fees or charges to assign it. It's all changed now, as I've told you guys in past blogs. So you cannot put it on the MLS. So now I'm restricted to putting it onto Craigslist or Facebook Market page or trying to do an exclusive listing to bring a buyer. Extremely difficult to do, and you cannot expect to get anywhere near market price for that home because who would pay market price for that home? When they know that you're selling an assignment like that, they know there's trouble. They know there's blood in the water. They can smell it. So the only offer, if you do get an offer, is going to be well below what you paid for it. They want to steal it because they know you're in trouble. So when somebody comes to me with this, I have to bear the bad news. Now, the odd time I have had it, it's been a while though, that they do allow me, the developer has not held back units and you can put it on the MLS. Then it can happen. However, most of the ones I've had the last couple of years, you cannot put it on the MLS. So I have to tell these people, you've got 2 options here, and neither one of them is all that great. But option 1 is you're going to breach the contract. So I had one here for this Richmond Center project. This young man called me and said, I can't make the 3rd and final installment in another 6 weeks, so I want you to sell it. I had to tell him I can't put it on the MLS. So he's in real trouble. He's not going to be able to meet that final deposit installment. And so you've got a couple of options here. You're either going to A, default on the agreement or breach the contract. That's no fun because now there's a good chance you're going to lose all your deposit funds you paid and you might get sued from the developer. A good chance you will. In other words, if that developer cannot sell that unit for what you paid for it, they could go after you, and in some cases will go after you for any difference or any shortfall. It all depends. But the bottom line is you will probably, at the very least, lose your deposit funds. Option 2, which is what I have to tell them to do, you've got to complete on this. See it through. With this guy, I said, try and get that final deposit if you can. Make plans. Try and get a co-signer. If you can't complete on it because of financing, do whatever you can. Bring a partner in. Get a family member, someone to co-sign so that you can close and complete on this. Then when it's complete, you get the keys. I can put it onto the MLS, take photos, measurements, put it on the MLS. But that's no walk in the park either, of course, because there's 20 other sellers just like you that have had a change of circumstance over the last 3 or 4 years and don't want to move into the unit anymore or can't complete on the unit. So if they do manage to complete on it, now there's going to be your unit and 20 or 30 others that are on the MLS just like yours for sale. So it becomes somewhat of a race to the bottom there. Very competitive. Plus, you've got to close on it, pay the closing costs, pay the GST, 5%, and then on the sale, depending on how the contract is written, there's going to be another set of GST. But again, it might be written where the buyer eats that or the seller eats it. Again, it all depends on how it's written. I saw some comments in my YouTube channel here where people just do not understand what I'm saying here. I'm not going to break it down here again, but there's a double set of GST. Depends again on how the contract is written. I've written it both ways. I've been on the buying side and on the listing side. On the buy side, when I'm buying a newer unit, I'm going to write in the contract prices inclusive of GST. That gets my buyer out of that. If they don't cross it out, if there is that second set, the seller's going to pay it again. Hire a pro for this, guys. Do not rely on a realtor who does not know this inside and out when you're selling a pre-sale or buying a pre-sale, a tangible unit that just got completed. You better know what you're doing here. You better hire a pro, an experienced realtor. The final option, which is always the best but can never really be done, is to complete on the unit and either move into it or put a tenant in it for a year or a year and a half or whatever. That way, you let all those sales, when it first completes, get washed out. Let them get sold. You avoid the double dip on the GST because now your tenant's going to move into it or you're going to move into it for a year or 18 months. Now you can sell it without that second set of GST. That's the best way to do it. But selling an assignment now, unless you can put it on the MLS, which is almost never anymore, the developers have got every angle covered. The reason they do is because the developers now hold back units, guys. So they don't want the competition. Once they get occupancy on these, they're going to put more of these units out in the market. They don't want the competition, or the pre-sale center's still open and they're still trying to sell units. They don't want your stuff on the MLS competing against theirs or undercutting them. So it's what I've often said with pre-sale. If you're going to buy a pre-sale, you better be 1,000% committed to either moving into it, living in it, if it's going to be your principal residence, or if you're an investor, closing on it, putting a tenant in it and seeing it through. Because if you get into a situation where you can't make the final installment or you can't get the financing and you can't close, it is ugly. You're going to lose your deposit funds, maybe get sued from the developer, and it's a mess. At the very least, try and close on it, sell it then, tangible then. You're going to have the double set of GST and a lot of competition, as I said. Or the ultimate is see it through, live in it for a year and a half, put a tenant in it for a year, then resell it. That'll be your best option. But trying to sell an assignment these days, incredibly difficult. You're in for a world of hurt. You really are. No buyer is going to buy an assignment on Craigslist and pay you anything near what you think it's worth. They're going to lowball you on this because they smell blood in the water, plain and simple. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks to all my new subscribers. I'll see you guys next week.